I had been teaching myself since 1972 in the summer how to work glass with 4mm stirring rods that were in the medical lab. And using a book I got at the library, Hamsa Strong, which was a scientific glassblowing manual written in the 40s from a guy that was left-handed on a crossfire.
What up, y'all? I'm Steve, and welcome to another exciting Elev8, where we sit down with some cool-ass artists in this industry. First, we have this really cool ambassador program. You can join as an Elev8 doll or an Elev8 chant, and it's really awesome. You get to help us build Elev8. It's super unique, super special, and you're really a part of something special. Check out Elev8ambassador.com to learn more. Another cool thing we have is our Elev8 Veterans program. I'm really honored to be a part of it. Teresa helps run it, and it's super awesome. We get to rehabilitate and reacclimate veterans into society our way. And you know what? I think we're doing it right. Go check it out at Elev8veterans.com. Third, there's Elev8 Bingo. It's super cool, super fun, and we get to show you more of what we do. And on top of that, every game there's a chance to win $50 credits for Elev8glassgallery.com. Go check it out. And now, let's roll into this super awesome Elev8. We got Lewis Wilson today here on Elev8. Thank you so much for joining us. You're a legend. Your name comes up over and over and over, and thanks a lot, man.
Okay, good to be.
My first question is, how did you get started in the glass? Right before we started, you mentioned that you're hitting 50 years now. So that's many moons ago. And how did you get into this thing? Because it's definitely not how it was.
I wanted to work glass kind of from at an early age, but I really didn't do anything until I was 21 years old. And in 1970, I joined the Air Force. I had been 3 years of civil engineering school at University of New Mexico. And then I joined the Air Force after I'd been drafted a couple of times into the Army and my student deferment kicked in.
Well, thank you for your
and
service,
then,
man.
Oh, okay. Well, I spent the Vietnam War in Cocoa Beach, so it wasn't bad duty at all for me. And my last 3 months of active duty in Cocoa Beach, it was Patrick Air Force Base, they had a program called the Transition Program. And it's like if you loaded bombs, there isn't a civilian equivalent job. I was a corpsman during the Vietnam War as a medic. My last 3.5 years, I actually ran an emergency room. Anything that would come into an ER, you'd see me and a couple other sergeants. And we'd work on you, and you had a doctor. We did anything that needed to be done. But I had been teaching myself since 1972 in the summer how to work glass with 4mm stirring rods that were in the medical lab. And doing this on a Bunsen burner and using a book I got at the library, Hamsa Strong, which was a scientific glassblowing manual written in the 40s from a guy that was left-handed on a crossfire. I learned enough out of that to teach myself to blow glass enough with sunglasses, a Bunsen burner, and then I eventually got a Burns-O-Matic weed torch, like a map gas thing about a foot tall, and then I used that, and I learned myself. I learned well enough that I could convince the Arribas brothers at Walt Disney World that if they trained me for my last 3 months of active duty, the military program would pay me so they could have me for free. But I showed them what I was doing, and they knew that within days they could show me, what's going to be needed. And my instructor there was Miguel Bonilla. He did most of their show pieces and larger pieces. Everything I was taught to do was spun glass, woven, drop stitch, running stitch, old school stuff that was done in clear rod out of 6 and 8mm rod.
Yeah,
so,
and that's what you mostly see at, like, there's a place called Wishing Well Glass Blowers, and it's all that real intricate stuff, and it's just like craziness how you create stuff out of just circles.
I still teach that just as a gimmick thing when I'm teaching people. They just want to know where we came from, and where we came from was the sideshows and circuses and carnivals. The American glassblower was an attraction at sideshows, pretty much. There were mostly German immigrants that came over in the 1800s, and a lot of those migrated to making knickknacks and carnivals and stuff like that. So Shane Farrow at the Glass Art Society produced a PowerPoint about 15 years ago that really showed where we came from. And up to about 30 years ago, you'd see every glassblower that was demoing was wearing a skinny tie and a white button-down shirt. And it was totally different than the scene is right now.
Yeah, I mean, so you've really seen everything change, like the whole thing just changed.
When I learned glass, I left Disney the day before I was out of the Air Force, and this would be January 20th, 1974. And at that time, there were 8 glassblowers in the state of Florida.
All working at Disney? Or that's it?
Yep, there were 8. Yep. And I left Disney and the military in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Then I went to Busch Gardens because I kind of wanted to end up in St. Petersburg. So I went to Busch Gardens at Tampa and just walked into their corporate office, asked to see somebody in a little corporate cubicle. And I'm talking to this guy. I said, well, I've been working here at Walt Disney World. I'm Walt Disney World trained, and, thought that carried much weight. And the guy says, listen here, kid, you know how to do all these items. So you can do 1,000 in a row teapots and crabs and bird baths, but you don't have insurance. You don't have a display. You can only do this and that. And so this little guy in this corporate office is saying that. And I hear through the cubicle to the next wall, a guy on the phone, damn, the fire heater quit and we need a juggler. And so I looked at the dude I'm talking to. I says, can I talk to that guy next door? In 1961, when I moved from Riverside, California, my father was in the Air Force, we ended up in Goose Bay, Labrador, 1,000 miles north of New York City. It was cold, and there was 8 months where you didn't see the sun. But circus tricks when I was 11 and 12, eating fire, juggling, and knife throwing. So I talked to the guy next door in the other cubicle, say, hey, I just heard you need a fire eater and a juggler. I also throw knives. The next day, this is 1974, January. The next day, I'm working this little outfit with a cummerbund and a wool bag with all my juggling stuff in it, fire eating things at Busch Gardens with 6 tattooed belly dancers, a magician and his assistant, a monkey boy. It was like the relics of what was left of sideshows. And I was making $15 an hour in 1970.
That's huge back then.
That's just 50 years ago. I was making $15 an hour. And did I mention there were 6 tattooed belly dancers? And I only worked every 15 minutes, 15 on, 15 minutes off. And in the evening, I was teaching myself how to do small solids as pendants and earrings. So for 2 years, I worked at Busch Gardens and I worked glass at night. And I had a route of maybe 35 or 40 stores all around Florida that would buy sets of earring and necklaces for, I think, $4.50. And then they would retail for $9. And I had maybe 120 designs of earrings and necklaces.
So you came right out the door.
That was where I started my business.
And so you came right out the door, just hustling, pushing hard. Talk about the right time, right place, but not just that, but you had to have those magical skills to get you in that door.
I had no skills. I pretty much.
Yeah, but not anybody's going to eat fire.
Yeah. Well, and for past 50 years, every time I would attend a flame off or I would do something where I'm doing a demo, I would always eat fire. I still have professional fire eating sticks when I go to do a conference. People always want to see me eat fire, and it's just my thing. And part of the circus thing, I enjoyed that. And the glass is kind of grown more into the circus environment than when I started, but it's fun seeing where it's evolving right now.
Right, no doubt. You mentioned that you had an instructor there teach you at Walt Disney,
named Miguel Bonilla, from Tecate, Mexico. and he learned how to work glass in San Diego and Tecate. They would actually go in the late 60s to the San Diego dump, and they would get corning ware, old, cookie. They would get a scoring knife, kind of like this is a kinematic scoring knife. They don't have this type of thing anymore, but they would get a scoring knife and score down lengthwise the length of these glass Pyrex plates, and then they would smash it, and they would attach a rod to it of real Pyrex. I mean, it's hard to find Pyrex in 1960s or early 70s other than through scientific suppliers.
And you didn't have an internet,
so
you didn't have really anywhere where you could probably go and get this equipment.
They would melt it down, and they were colored Pyrex. Han's beauty cream came in a jar that was Pyrex, and they would use that. So these glass blowers in Mexico at the San Diego dump would find glass that they could work with, and that's how my instructor started. He started working glass to impress a girlfriend that asked if he could make her. And he said, "Well, of course." So then he figured out how to make a unicorn so he could win this girl. And I was there at Walt Disney World. There were 16 glass blowers in a row and 2 40-foot trailers. So you got 80 foot of trailer butt to butt with a 6-pack of oxygen cylinders, all teed into one outlet, all working on National 3A blow pipe, 110 to 120 decibels.
Holy mackerels.
Very, very loud.
So yeah, that was like old school sweatshop back then.
Yep. I was the only one that didn't speak Spanish as my first language.
Really?
Glass blowers from Castillo, Spain, which is where Alfonso Arribas were from. In 1968, they got the concession for the Seattle World's Fair, and that's where they got into the world of parks. So when they got the Seattle World's Fair in 68 to sell glass, then they got Six Flags over Texas, Pacific Ocean Park, Disneyland, Disney World. Anywhere there's a mega place with people, the Arribas brothers found out a way of getting to be the glass.
Man, that's really, really neat. Besides that, have you had any classes throughout your career? Or have you mostly been a giver of classes, being that you started so early on and really almost taught yourself by just full immersion into the glass blowing world?
Well, my first class, other than what Miguel taught me and stuff around there early on, my first real class was auditing a class with Emilio Santini, where I hired him to teach at one of the shows that I promoted in Tucson. And then around I took a class with Lucio Bubaco at Franz Art Glass in Olympia, Washington. And then I took another class with Lucio. And then the following year, I went to Murano and took a third class with Lucio in his studio for a week. And also there was Vittorio Costantini. And so my biggest influence really on the human form would be through Lucio Bubaco and the style he works in. And that was all through soft glass, which is a totally different working element than Boro.
Which do you prefer more, soft glass or Boro?
When I played with soft glass, it was totally interesting. You got a lot longer working time. And there's techniques that you have to use. It. The first time I got soft glass was in the 70s, and I got a rod up and said, "Wow, look, colored glass!" And it just blew up and spit all over me. And it's a whole, another way of working glass. And as long as you approach it the way you should, by slowly preheating it, having a surface mix torch, and on a premix national, totally the torch in the world to work soft glass, but it's just different rules for different people. The glass for my sculptures now, almost 99% everything I do is out of borosilicate. My wife still works a lot in bonsai and moretti or effigy with glass flowers and stuff like that, but I've mostly been now for 50 years. I did soft glass in the early 1990s. 93, I did my first video on making beads in soft glass, followed by another 8 videos on soft glass. And then I did like 10 or 12 videos on borosilicate. And that's kind of where people knew about me mostly, was from my videos on working glass. And then because I taught so many people how to make glass, all these people, I promoted a show where they could sell these beads. And that's why I started with glass bead show in Tucson. And I had 180 glass blowers in the same building. And a lot of serious people, and a lot of people that were totally unknown that are really well known now.
Right, man, like the Godfather there. So when color came around, like, how long had you been blowing before color came around? Were you attempting to create your own colors in Boro?
No. In 1977, I met Robert Mickelson. We were both living in St. Pete, Florida. And I met him at the Wagon Wheel Flea Market. And neither of us had anything over $10 on our displays. My display was a tie-dye blanket that was thrown on the ground, and everything was on that. Both pieces as his base. I mean, running stitch with a loop stitch trim, and then he'd do a sculpture on it. I had found wood bases that I'd drilled, put a 6mm post in. So I was posting pieces. But together, once a month, we would do a run from St. Petersburg to Sarasota to a guy named John, oh wow, I forget the guy's name. I want to say John Deacon, but it's not. It might be. We went to Sarasota Glassblowers and wholesale to him, and then to Circus near Orlando, and then to Claremont, Florida, where Gene Bouts had a gift shop. There are 4 or 5 places that we did once a month to do a wholesale. And when we went down to the Glassblowers in Sarasota, there was a guy there, I think it is John Deacon, and he was working a Crossfire, was mostly French soft glass, doing hollow animals and stuff like that. He had a cobalt that was in Corning for them to do eyeballs on small animals. And that was the extent of color, like in 1977, 78. You go forward, and you started hearing these things about Sue Ellen Fowler, where she had her 15 years earlier from John Burton. When she was 14 years old, her father was a professor at Pepperdine University in California, and he arranged for her to get into a class that was mostly for scientists and biologists to take glassblowing scientific. And so she learned for from John Burton, and he was the one that had the formulas, putting different things, germanium dioxide and stuff like that, in tubing and work it and make little rods of color. And then she eventually showed Paul Troutman these formulas that she had developed. And then Troutman came out with the glass that was kind of commercially available in 93 or 94. So I worked clear for 20, 25 years before I did anything in color.
Wow, man. Do you find yourself now using more color than clear?
I still use a fair amount of clear pieces that I made for the King of Spain or George Bush or Bill Clinton, corporate gifts, things like that. People really want the color, so you do that. But as a glass worker, I myself love the clarity of just clear. There, you have to make every well perfect. The glass knows what you're going to do, and it will remember everything. So I still, as a purist, I like clear glass as the medium for me to excel in.
Yeah, I love that you say that, just because, like, it feels like glass is the only medium that really has clear as a color, and you have to master clear because it shows everything. You can see wall thicknesses, everything, and that's neat. You say that. Yeah, you still love clear.
And when it started to coming around with all the Illuminatis and with the different glow glass and all this stuff, I'll make a nice piece. I'll put it out there, sell it on marbles and things or something. And some stupid ass fool will say, "Oh, that's really great. Can you do it in Illuminati? Or can you do it in this or that?" It's a sculpture. That's where I'm from. It's just, if you want to spray paint it any color, you buy it and spray paint it. I do everything but say paint it, bitch. It's like, right here, I'm offering you my best and you want it in a different color. This is, that doesn't float.
Right. I love that. I love your attitude about it too. Like, this is what you get. And because you only get so much time in this life and you got to do what you like. If you do what everybody else wants, man, life starts to suck because you're being pulled. What do you think the most difficult piece you've ever created in your career so far is?
I had been making pieces for the medical school at the University of New Mexico that they gave as gifts to alumnus that had been to the University Medical School. And I was there from 67 to 70, but I knew people that were still at the university in the 80s and 90s. And a fraternity brother of mine had told me that they needed some gifts for it's called the Katali Club, which was the alumnus of UNM Medical School. And they said, well, we've got this astronaut named Drew Gaffney that graduated from our medical school, and we want to give him a gift. And then I guess it was Bill Clinton's Surgeon General, C. Everett Koop. He was coming to give a lecture. So the first two pieces for the University of Mexico there were one to an astronaut and then to C. Everett Koop. In 1989, the governor of New Mexico put a notice in the newspaper that the King of Spain was going to visit, and they wanted to give a gift to state. A literal gift to state. And so all these people sent proposals in, and I was the only one that said, well, here, I'll give this first ever limited edition piece that's made out of 1 inch clear, stands about 14 inches tall. And I'll give that to you if you can give me a letter from the governor. So that's all I asked. And I ended up the only one that wanted to donate it. Now, years later, Janet Napolitano, as the governor of Arizona, had seen my work. Her father was the retiring chief doctor at the University of New Mexico Medical School. The medical school wanted to give him a fantastic piece. So they wanted to say, can you do a limited edition eagle twice as big as the limited size, but we want it in color. And this was in maybe 1998 or 99. And it took like maybe 40 rods of color, of indigo, luster, and white, and a variety of other colors. But it pushed my limits with the amount of weight that you can hold on a 20-inch punty that's a half-inch rod with, say, 8 pounds of glass on it for 6 hours. And so it's like, you're bad in school and they make you hold a phone book. And then they say, yeah, we'll put it out to the side and hold it there. We'll see you in an hour. There's a point where your body starts to have some problems.
Right.
I had a third of my removed from malignant melanoma in 1984. And so there's muscles on the left side of my back where I had this 9-inch by 5-inch diamond that was removed from cancer. And so it's hard for me to carry much weight anyway. And then doing the majority of your time sitting down. The studio I'm in now, I've made over 100,000 pieces in, not including about 30,000 beads. These are all sculptural pieces since 1986 I've made in this room.
That's
and then,
crazy that you've made so many pieces.
Well, based on 6 or 8 pieces a day and taking 2 weeks off and working 5 days a week. But I generally work every day a week and I don't take 2 weeks off. I'm fortunate to be mostly healthy and busy. And I got in early enough so that I sold a lot of videos. I got well known. I've got a good following on Instagram and Facebook. And, it's a good time to be playing with glass.
It really is a great time. I feel really blessed now. I know even in my career 18 years ago, there were some bumpy rides in it. And man, now today, here I am reaching out to you, you know, it's just such a big world of glass. And I just think a lot of people just don't know about it still. And I don't know. It's so neat. So uh, have you ever like competed in any kind of like competitions or events or anything?
Well, the shirt I'm wearing here,
Yeah.
that's me holding a rod of Moretti that's yellow with a hot dog on it. And I'm cooking the hot dog on what at that point in 2002 was the world's largest glassblowing torch. And it was the first python that GTT made. In the early or the late 1990s, first flame off in Tucson while I started my shows in Tucson in 96. And then immediately we had all those glass blowers there. And then we found facilities in Tucson where we could have a flame off or a group action type of a thing. But I didn't create the word flame off, but I produced the first one in Tucson at Studios, and then I produced the first one that was a large, serious one in 2002. That was the Albuquerque Flame Off. 300 glassblowers showed up, 16 hours a day for 3 days at 6. And it was the first time a lot of people had seen things happening. I mean, I had Mylan Townsend there, Doug Remschneider, Donnie Hatch, Marcel Braun, Jesse Taj, Josh Sable, Andrew Brown. I mean, an awful lot of people that
Over
were
300.
not known then.
Right.
No.
Man, that's crazy. Like, oh, you've done so much for this community, putting it, building all that stuff. What's that?
It was the first time there was mass sharing of techniques and information.
Yeah, because before that, and I think still even to this day, but over time, it's been a really like kept secret. I feel, with YouTube and all that, it's a lot freer. But so that point you feel was a big turning point where knowledge started in free.
A lot of people, the Albuquerque Flame Off was the first time that a lot of people saw a lot of other people doing the same thing. And the Flame Offs kind of was a pissing contest. Okay, I can piss further than you can. And you see all these people up there. And Delene Peralta is the one who won. She did this hollow hand of Jerry with a little fairy dancing with it. And she made the hand out of flat sections of tubing or flat sections of dichro. She heated them up. She curled them around and made tubing out of dichro, made the fingers in the hand for Jerry Garcia's hand. And did this little fairy and the whole thing. She was so nervous, and she won a Delta. She won oven. She won a prize package worth $4 or $5 grand. And but of everybody there that was really well known, she was a total unknown, and she totally won. The way we did the voting, screw all your judge a gallery, yada this and yada that. Don't mean shit. What does mean shit is the 300 glass blowers that were in attendance. I emptied the hall, had them leave the building, go around to the front door, and then one by one they came in, and there were 3 huge 8-foot wide, 4-foot tall panels, markers on it. The first one had everybody that was in the sculpture category. The next one was the bead and the marble category, and the other one was the bead category. So in the sculptures was also goblets. So the first guy walks in, and across a little 4-foot aisle says, I want to make my first thing for that person, and then it beads for that person, and then for marbles that person. So you came in front of everybody, you voted openly, they marked your vote, and then they stamped your hand just like old school wherever. And then I ran 100 people through, and we voted that way. There was not one slanted gallery owner. There was not one guy that had an issue with one dude. It was everybody saying who they liked the best.
Right. That's awesome.
That's how it should be done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Voting nowadays is all crazy with Instagram and this and that and all these followers, and people pay, and it's just, it's a crazy world. I guess, do you consume cannabis at all?
not all that much. I started in 1970. I went to 3 to college. I was my 5th or 6th day in the Air Force, and a bathroom with 6 guys wearing identical khaki underwear, and somebody's passing a joint around. And as soon as I took my first hit, coming in through the window of the bathroom, I could hear from a guy who was mowing a lawn with a push lawnmower, and he had a transistor radio. And my first hit, I heard the radio come in with Nights in White Satin from Moody Blues. And after a few years of smoking, these couple of friends told me that, you're going to be smoking, you're going to get hooked on that evil weed. And right now, I can honestly say I smoked for 52 years and I haven't gotten hooked yet.
I love it, man. I love it.
And I still, like, you roll a joint with papers. I don't need a $5,000 rig to enjoy cannabis.
Right. So you like the flower. You're a flower man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Some herbs and wax and stuff at AGI in Pennsylvania. And it just floored me too much. It was stupid. And then you see all these assholes all over internet with, they got like, I got 30 gram little dab here. This, you wasteful asshole. What the hell are you doing that? Why don't you just throw all your shit away? Kick your away. You're just wasting it. This is so I'm impressed that you can smoke a whole bunch. It don't mean shit.
No, if people want to waste money, man, I love people. If they want to waste money, throw it my way. Cause I don't understand that. But
they're right up people that have a pipe and then they drop it on the floor. This is, are you stupid?
Yeah.
I'm not impressed. Yeah.
I do love the flavors of the waxes, but it's just a joint, nice and easy, or maybe a blunt or something like that. Do you have any hobbies outside of glass?
I wouldn't say hobbies. In 1964, I started taking Shotokan karate, and I studied 20 hours a week, and I got my black belt in 1969. I was a tournament karate fighter from 66 until 82.
Wow.
I was in U.S. Nationals, had 40 fractures. I've been I was in tournaments in the 70s where Bruce Lee was one of the judges. And I'd been in tournaments where Chuck Norris was not known other than he's just another black belt fighting.
Man, that's
so
cool.
The karate, and back then karate was there wasn't safety punch and safety kick. You hit, you broke, you didn't have to wear boxing gloves and shit like that. Other hobbies, I can't really say I've got any hobbies. I enjoy playing in my yard and fruit trees and working on the house and stuff like that. But I don't crochet or knit or, do other things. I'm quite happy with what I'm doing now.
Yeah, that's so neat, Glass. I talk to a lot of artists that they'll have hobbies, and there's still a bit though that glass is their life, their hobby, their work, their passion, and that's really neat that it's still that for you. Do you find that you still have the same love and passion for glass today as when you first started 50 years ago? I'm
not doing 10 or 12 anymore. I don't have to. For years, I was doing 70 and 80-hour weeks on the torch, going through K cylinders left and right. I've got a high volume oxy system now that I use, but the passion is still there. It's just different pieces that I'm working on. Pandemic has been very good for me, where I would never have before 2 years ago spent 8 hours, 9 hours on one piece, or doing a set and different things like that. But it's allowed me to put a lot more time in my work. But I've pretty much been a production worker all my life, going through phases where it's paperweights or marbles or different fantasy and sci-fi pieces. My business name of Crystal Myths was crystal mythology. And when I got my first business cards in 74, I went to a print shop, and, they typeset everything in 1974. And the guy just said, okay, I'll give you 100 cards. It's going to cost you $18 for crystal mythology, and then your name and your phone number, and that was it. Versus, if you went with crystal myths, it's going to cost you $9. And I said, wow, okay, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, back then that was a fair amount of money. And so you jump forward another 20 years into the mid 90s, and I've got an 800 number because I'm selling my videos, and crystal meth is out there as methamphetamine. And I had an 800 number. So I started getting calls, people reporting drug labs because they don't know how to spell meth or meth. So they Google crystal meth, come up with crystal myths. They call me and they tell me where the drug house is. And I tell them, that's nice to know. I'm not out now, but if I do need the reference, thank you.
So I'm sure that's been quite an adventure all on its own, huh?
There's still people that they see my business card, crystal myths, and they say crystal meth. And it's just like they don't have a clue.
Right. I love it, man. I love it. Do you what do you have planned for the future? Do you have any more do you plan on doing maybe more sets or stuff like that? Or
I just pretty much keep doing what I'm doing. When we're done through here towards the tail end, I can pick my phone up and give you a tour through my studio, and then to the gallery, and then I'll go outside. I'm looking forward to, in 1 month, I'm teaching at Mesa Arts. I think it's June 4th and 5th in Mesa, Arizona. I was put on hold from teaching at Nautilus Glass in East Anthem, Mass. I taught at Colorado Color last September. I had like 4 or 5 places that had to cancel because of COVID, but I've taught in Australia with the Glass Art Society. I taught in Amsterdam with Glass Art Society. I've taught 3 times in Japan. Instructor for karate only spoke Japanese, so I guess Hayaku Chudan. Nigides is right hand. Hayaku is fast, Chudan is stomach. It's like, I'm going to punch your stomach fast. It's not a conversation, but it transmits knowledge. So I learned probably about 1,000 words in Japanese from my karate. Body parts and different things you do having to do with striking and speed and left and right, things like that. So when I taught in Japan the first time, Morio Toyoshima invited me to teach at the Kobe Glass Fest. And this was in 2005, I believe. And there were 500 glassblowers there. And my mom has a good friend who's Japanese. And I prepared a 90-minute speech. And it was, it was Tambudama, which is a glass bead. And Muhotsuka Ka Doragon. Muhotsuka is a wizard or a sorcerer. Ka Doragon is dragon. So I started my, they had a translator next to me, and I sat down. And I said hello, and I in English said hello. My name's Louis Wilson, and this guy said blah 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 blah, and then I said EA. I said no, and I kind of pushed him away, and I said, "Watashi wa Louis Wilson desu. Nihongo ga skoshi hanashimasu," which means hello. My name's Louis Wilson, and I speak a little bit of Japanese. So I gave this lecture over 90 minutes of making a wizard and a dragon, first the small sculptural components, put those in an oven. Then I made this long bead that's about 3 inches long with a bunch of side components. And then I put the wizard and the dragon on, and I ended up with this, $200 bead with the wizard and the dragon. And all through this, I made 33 correct, perfect sentences in Japanese with perfect intonation. And everything was outstandingly proper and exact. And then at the end of my presentation, everybody clapped, and some guy stands up and asks me a question in Japanese. And I said, sumimasen, which is, I'm sorry, but watashi wa nihongo skoshi hanashimasen. If you put the word sen after a sentence, it negates it, which means that I'm sorry, I do not understand the Japanese. And this is right after I gave a lecture for 90 minutes. And they just broke up and I owned them at that point. So then I came back another couple of years later and I taught in Osaka with Kanari glass, which is 128 COE, very soft glass. And then also taught in Kyoto with Morio Toyoshima's studio. The glass that's being taught in Japan and their level of dedication is just killer. They started off in probably the mid 90s looking at what the 70s was with American glass borosilicate, and now they have just totally eclipsed what we do. I mean, they're really, really good. I've probably got 20 friends in Japan that are just incredibly well. At the Kobe Glass Museum, when you walk in, there's a wall on one left side, and there's probably 300 beads from individual Japanese artists that nobody knows who the hell they are. Every one of those beads has more detail and intricacy than anything that Lawrence Stump has ever done. I mean, these are totally unknown people that don't know how great they are. And over there, it's just all good, and they don't know that they're all great. But if you get a chance to go to Japan, make sure you go to Kobe and Glass Museum.
Do you feel that like maybe that's the Japanese culture where they find a thing and really hone in on it and focus it, and maybe Americans are out just running all over the place, and instead of doing one thing 30,
if they have a task to do, they do it. They don't fuck around, and they're dedicated to learning it and excelling at it. It's like a true passion to be good to the medium. Americans are like, oh, I got to go on a safety break, and hey, let's go look at this. And it's like shiny objects left and right. And it's like, no, it's just the work ethic. And Americans are used to being presented with everything for free. So.
Yeah. And, I think you come from a time and, earlier time when the work ethic was definitely there in America. I feel like I do find some Americans, even I have a young guy working with me now that just blows me away. But I do see that there's a lot of people out there, lots of breaks, lots of time off. I need a vacation. Don't work too hard and all this. And I don't know. It seems like you get what you put in, I guess.
You got more questions?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think the best place, where can we find you? You have videos out there that we can get. You have a website.
Wilson, all run together, is my YouTube channel, and I might have a couple of hundred videos. There's an awful lot of videos that are 2 or 3 minutes long. That's me finishing the last few minutes of a lemon piece. There's a few that are maybe 20 minutes long that show maybe a garden gnome or something like that, but there's a lot of those on YouTube. Now, if you go to lewiswilson.com, that's my website. And if you on the government and corporate commissions, that's where all the fancy people are that own my work, and rock stars and shit like that, and corporations that are the nastiest pillaging rapist companies in the world. And you put it in the lobby of their big business. But if I'm on Instagram at Lewis C. Wilson, and then on Facebook, I'm on a variety of different selling places where I do a lot of tutorials and stuff like that. But the most amount of glass is on Dirty Looie's Glassland. At the 2002 Flame Off, my mom was helping sell tickets to the event, and I came in from doing something mechanical, and I was cleaning my hands, and Lauren Stump happened to be there, and somebody said, wow, look how grumpy your hands are, you're all dirty. And in front of Lauren Stump, my mom says, that's not dirty. Louie was always dirty. He would from playing, and he was just always filthy. He was just a dirty Louie. And she said that in front of Lauren Stump, and he grabbed the microphone and just say, look, just fits. So that's where the Dirty Looie thing came from. and I've enjoyed that. It's a fun thing. Everybody needs a nickname. So if I've got a Piper name, some of the things I sign is Dirty Looie instead of Lewis Wilson, stuff like that.
I love it, man.
But if you like, I can give you a quick run around my studio. And the first thing I'll do is I'll show you. So this is my workstation. This is the second ever Mirage that was made.
No way.
I showed Willie Wallace how to work glass in 96 or 97 at a scientific glass conference in Albuquerque. They invited me over to work on a Mirage, which I was never done. I made a fool of myself, but I liked it. So I ordered the second one. The first one was their demo one. The first thing you notice, see up there, my clear story, my studio is 40 feet long and 16 feet wide and 16 feet tall. That's my ventilation, along with a swamp cooler that blows air, or I just blow air through it.
You just push it right out.
This is right down there. That's a little small refrigerated air condition if I need it. This, unknown to most glass blowers in the history of America, that's called a space heater.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps your studio all warm where your balls don't freeze. This is my wife's torch station. She does mostly soft glass with Bullseye at 90 or Moretti at 104. When you ask about competitions, this is what I put up. Can you read that? I put that in front of me every time I have a flame off to intimidate the young kids. This coffee can, you see that?
Yeah.
Are you still here?
Yeah.
That coffee can was my first knockoff thing in 1974, January 20th. I went to work glass in my first home studio. This is my high volume oxy system.
Yes.
This is a Ocean Pacific flat lap magnetic glass saw, sandblasting cabinet. This is my wife's art studio where she does a lot of work with different things, but it all has to do with soft glass flowers. I'm walking through the studio.
Man, that is huge.
Oh, and back here, swamp cooler, like that swamp cooler blowing it in the summer, cooling it, or in the winter, just blowing air, goes right up there, and it's just a perfect ventilation. And I didn't have to spend $5,000 so that I don't get dead from the ventilation police.
Right, and because hot air rises, so no matter what, it's just going to push all that out.
Yeah. So here is my gallery. This had been the breezeway between the studio and my house.
That's so awesome.
There's a little pipe goes in through there. I've got a scientific glassblower friend that does my tops and bottoms goblet parts. This is just a variety of things. And this is a lot of people that have been buying from me at shows in New Mexico. I've been doing shows here for 35 years. And so I generally have this whole studio set up for sale, and I get a lot of people visit, or if somebody's interested, those are the pieces that I made yesterday. This piece here with the 4 samurai and the dragon, I got the first in lamp working at Glasscraft X. Let me take this outside. This is my backyard.
So you've created your whole life there. You got your home there. Your
That's a studio.
You got everything right there.
And can you see the eagle up top there?
Yes.
I made that 30 years ago for my mom. And when she died, I got it back and I mounted it up there so that, you know, the eagle can look over the yard.
That's really awesome.
So that's pretty much the house, the studio, the gallery.
That's really awesome, man. I love how you just built your whole life right there. You don't got to go far, and it's just right there.
Well, I had 2 friends built this studio in 11 days with me as their helper. And then it took me 6 months to do the insulation and the sheetrock. And then I started it, and after about 20 minutes of painting it, I said, fuck it, I'm going to go to work. So in 1986, I started to paint and texture one little. And I said, ain't going to 30 years later, I still haven't painted it, and there's no need for me to paint it. It's a work studio.
I love that. My studio is the same way. It's just freaking sheetrock. So good stuff. Man, Lewis, this was super awesome. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy guy out there.
Okay.
Seeing you working 50 days, it looks like you're working damn near 50 years every day. A freaking,
sure.
You know, like, I just love the work ethic. I love what you're doing. I just love that you took a couple minutes to sit here with me, man. Really appreciate it.